Thank you all for coming. My name is Livy, and I'm the Associate Director of Community and Library Outreach at Punctum Books. I also work for the COPIM project. With me is Eileen, the Founding Director of Punctum Books and a project leader for the COPIM project. The COPIM project, community-led open publication infrastructure for monographs, is funded by Research England and the Arcadia Fund. COPIM started in 2019 with the goal of building a variety of open infrastructures, including metadata management systems and new business models to support smaller scale open book initiatives and tools. Before I talk about what the OBC is, how it works, and what it does, I want to share that the COPIM project was developed by members of Scholar-Led, a consortium of scholar-led OA book publishers that formed in 2018 in order to work collaboratively, non-competitively on developing business strategies resistant to the marketization of academic knowledge production, and to foster and support smaller scale startup OA book presses through resource, skills, and knowledge sharing. Before the OBC came into actual being, we started with a series of research gathering exercises. We asked librarians, funders, researchers, and policymakers from a wide variety of countries about support for OA books in their respective communities. We asked whether or not there was funding for OA books within their institutions and countries, or lacking that, was support for OA books being worked on in any fashion, and if so, how? We discussed the shift from libraries traditionally acquiring content to subscribing to various platforms for unlocking content and what they saw as the challenges of that. From these conversations, we developed a 90-page scoping report called The Promise of Collaboration, Collective Funding Models, and the Integration of OA Books into Libraries. And it's actually available online to read, and Eileen will put a link to it in the chat. So what we learned is that many of us situated in very different contexts within scholarly communications have shared goals to open content and technical infrastructure, both within local learning and research communities and across the world. And in order to do so more effectively, we need to create stronger, connected communities and collectives where mutual aid and collaboration are the guiding principles, and where OA content and tools creators would join hands with librarians, researchers, and funding and policy agencies in order to govern these collectives together. It is our hope that libraries, alongside efforts to broker transformative agreements and to support singular OA initiatives one by one, might also consider funding a collective designed to sustain smaller to medium-scale OA book publishing initiatives that have gathered together for an experiment in mutual social reliance. So we built the OBC based on what the community of libraries and other potential funders in the US, UK, and Europe told us they wanted to see. What we have envisioned and enabled is a space where a wide variety of not-for-profit OA book publishers and tools builders can be surveyed and evaluated in depth alongside each other. We want better systems and platforms for stemming the tide, even if incrementally, of the corporate enclosure of content and infrastructure. And we also designed the OBC to shelter a multiplicity of smaller OA book initiatives that need collective aid and support because they don't have the capacity to reach out to funders on their own. And we want to help them not just survive, but to thrive.
In a nutshell, these are our aims and ethos. Create new revenue streams for small to medium-sized open book publishers and tools builders, especially ones that eliminate or reduce the need for author-facing fees. Enable librarians and other funders to survey and evaluate a wide variety of initiatives in a more comprehensively efficient manner than currently exists. Build a new community of open publishers, open tools builders, libraries, and OA researchers, all devoted to bibliodiversity and the support of OA book publishing. Build more durable open infrastructures, including business models for OA books, because open content without open infrastructure is a lost cause. Establish as a not-for-profit charity registered in the UK that cannot ever be acquired by a for-profit commercial company. Maintain 100% transparency in all aspects of the OBC's management, financial and otherwise. Establish a governance structure that models shared community management of the OBC and OA book publishing more largely. Create a new collective for OA books, which models mutual aid, such that smaller startup operations are given financial support and other forms of assistance to grow their operations and improve their technical capabilities. As a group, all publisher and tool builder members of the OBC will contribute part of what they receive to a collective fund for this purpose. Not to mention that the OBC itself will perform all funder outreach, contracting, and accounting on behalf of its members.
For libraries and other knowledge institutions, we are hoping that the OBC will be seen as useful in a variety of ways. Aggregation. Our web platform will feature a shared catalog, including all the books of all the presses in our collective, with a wide variety of rich metadata and catalog records per book. Relevance. When you go to our web platform, you can see richly detailed information for each member initiative, what their missions and values are, their business models, their cost of productions, output of books per year, tools under development, and their progress, and so on. Due diligence. For presses and tool builders, there will be a scrutiny of what they do and how they do it. And there are criteria for joining the OBC to ensure that best practices and best standards of various kinds are being performed and implemented. And where this is lacking, the OBC will contribute funds and labor to remedy this. Workflow. Our web platform's design, accounting procedures, and third-party partners such as Lyrasis ensure that funders will not be faced with undue burdens processing and tracking their financial support of the OBC and its member initiatives.
There are 3 types of members in the collective right now. This list may expand in the future as we and others see fit, but currently we have born open access publishers. Everything they publish is open access, always has been, and always will be. Transitional open access publishers. Transitional means presses that have a closed or partially closed catalog, but they want to move their front list to being 75 to 100% OA. Open publishing service providers. Anyone working on open infrastructure for OA books. To give some examples, Open Monograph Press, a platform developed by the Public Knowledge Project, and OAPN Library, a global repository for OA books, both of whom will be members of the collective. We want all of these groups to work together rather than individually in their own silos, struggling to find funding to sustain their operations. And in essence, competitively, where competition should not exist.
We are currently finalizing our online platform, launching soon, and you can see here what the website's homepage will look like. It is a primary space where funders can go to explore, survey, and compare various member initiatives and their offers, and to also discover publishers and open tools builders that have not been as visible as they should be, but are highly worth funding. Here you can see the shared catalog that is integrated with the OBC website. Any publisher who joins the OBC will have their books in this catalog, which currently comprises the works of Punctum Books, Open Book Publishers, and Maison Press, with books from Mattering Press, African Minds, and Media Studies Press currently being added. This catalog will grow each time a publisher joins. We have created this shared catalog so that librarians making decisions about what content they want to support can search, for example, by subject area or by press, and the search will generate results by whole books as well as book chapters. For instance, if a librarian is looking for an OA press that specializes in global perspectives and social science, they will discover African Minds, or if they want to see who has a focus in media and technology studies, they'll discover Maison Press. But they will also discover which presses in the OBC have special dedicated emphasis in these areas. The shared catalog also provides richly detailed metadata, book by book, and even chapter by chapter, and librarians can also download catalog records in a wide variety of formats in batches or book by book. The shared catalog is built on top of TOTE, an open metadata management system, which has also been developed by the COPIM team, and which will be growing exponentially as more and more OA presses use TOTE as a metadata management system and discovery channel. Again, Eileen will put the link to TOTE in the chat.
The OBC adopts a funding scheme that will look familiar to other library-funded OA initiatives, but with a twist that makes for a truly shared enterprise built on mutual aid and anti-competitive collaboration. This is rare when it comes to library funding for open access, although there are some exceptions, such as Lyrasis' Open Access Community Investment Program and SCOS. But for better or worse, OA initiatives primarily seek funding on their own and therefore create competition whether they like it or not. Not to mention it is difficult for libraries to sort through and evaluate all of the initiatives that come to them for funding one by one. Knowledge Unlatched once modeled something like a community of OA initiatives, or at least provided a useful portfolio of them. But now that it has been acquired by Wiley, we need better alternatives. With the OBC, the funding scheme is fairly straightforward while also being noteworthy for its distribution of cost. To give a concrete example, a library decides to support one of the presses in the OBC at an annual pledge of $3,000. They will pay a 5% fee on top of that pledge, $150. That will go directly to operating expenses and allows libraries to say they've accomplished two important things with their pledge. They have supported the OBC as a whole and also the singular initiatives they have chosen for support. This is a powerful funding decision with an impact that goes far beyond supporting this or that initiative. The entire OBC and its members have been supported with this decision, and libraries can broadcast this fact and make it a robust part of their collection strategies. Then, and this is also highly unique, member initiatives will donate 10% of the money that they receive back to the OBC. With this example, that's $150 to operating expenses and $150 to our collective development fund, which, as far as we know, is something that doesn't exist anywhere. The Collective Development Fund will dispense mini grants to smaller startup initiatives who need help improving and expanding their operations, including learning and implementing best practices and best standards for OA content and tools. The Collective Development Fund will also be used to create toolkits and learning modules and webinars, etc., for presses and tools builders to learn how to run a press or how to build a platform, including setting up its business management, how to manage workflows, how to manage metadata and analytics, how to disseminate and aggregate OA content and data, how to create ebook preservation protocols, how to meet international open data standards, and the like. We truly believe this is one of the most equitable and inclusive ways to support OA books and their associated tools and platforms, and with huge reach and impact on a global scale. Our governors and our members come from both sides of the global North and South, and collectively, the output of our members is quantitatively significant. As regards the governance of the Open Book Collective, our key concern has been that the governance of the OBC be membership-shaped, community-led, democratically representative, equitable, and transparent, and that it model a true globality that doesn't prioritize the global North. Our board members, for instance, come from the US, UK, Europe, Africa, and South America. The OBC adopts an association model as opposed to the foundation model in which the only voting members are the trustees. The association model has a wider membership that includes voting members other than the trustees. The OBC's governance model has been designed to ensure that there is a balance between the rights of the members, whom we call custodians, to make decisions, and the general responsibility of the trustees, whom we call stewards, for running the organization. So the trustees are primarily responsible for running the organization. The members are represented on the board of stewards and therefore are part of the decision-making process. So there's a collective of members comprising publishers, tool builders, alongside librarians and other funders, and also a board that represents all of these constituencies and also adds in external OA researchers, all of which means the OBC's governance has been engineered to make the OBC truly responsive to its funders, as well as to the larger community of communities dedicated to open access book publishing. Since the OA presses and tools builders are also the OBC's financial beneficiaries, our governance model ensures that the OBC is fully responsive to and guided by its funder custodians, as well as by external OA researchers and experts. Together, the funders sitting on the board of stewards, along with the OA experts, occupy a majority voting position. So, for example, librarians and OA experts together will have a majority voting position on the board. This ensures the interest of the OBC as a community, regardless of the single interest of any one member, are protected at all times. Furthermore, this majority voting position creates a situation whereby the OA initiative beneficiaries will be, we hope, more responsive to the larger community of actors in the OA landscape. Ultimately, the governance of the OBC has been designed to empower a unique collaborative community of OA creators, researchers, and libraries and other funders with vested interest in growing the landscape of non-proprietary, non-commercialized OA initiatives, with OA experts who have deep knowledge in the histories and theories of scholarly communications and open access. The OBC is thus not just a financial intermediary between OA initiatives seeking funding and the funders, but instead is an interdependent and mutually reliant community of persons and organizations, all with vested interest in the transformation of academic book publishing, working together to move the needle toward a fully open public commons and away from the enclosure of knowledge of traditional proprietary publishing. There is nothing more difficult than doing work collectively or establishing a collective that doesn't fall apart under internal and external pressures. And the word community gets thrown around a lot these days, as if we are all supposed to intuitively understand what it means. And thus it can often feel hollow and even feels like a lie at times. But as Angela Davis has reminded us, this is an era where we have to encourage that sense of community, particularly at a time when neoliberalism attempts to force people to think of themselves only in individual terms and not in collective terms. It is in collectivities that we find reservoirs of hope and optimism. That's Angela Davis. We have built the OBC with the aims and values and optimistic hopes of OA books creators and supporters at the forefront of our minds. When developing the OBC, we drew upon the expertise of OA book publishers, open tools builders, librarians, and OA researchers in a series of workshops spanning 2 to 3 years. And as the COPIM project is also led by these very same constituencies, we believe what we have created is a collective and a community in the truest sense of these words. One we believe is highly unique, even singular in the landscape, and more than worthy of investment. Thank you very much for listening to our presentation. If you want to know more about the Open Book Collective and the COPIM project, we've put some links in the chat that will bring you to sites where you can see all of the documentation of the OBC and COPIM more largely. And now we'd like to ask if there are any questions.